Ralph Waldo Emerson famously said, "Life is a journey, not a destination." I believe it is the same when it comes to financial freedom. We all like to think that financial freedom is a final destination that we will one day reach. And once we reach it, there'll be unicorns and fireworks and all our problems will just vanish. However, if we were to think this way, we would be in a world of disappointment. Hi, if you're new to the channel, my name is Tay from Financial Tortoise, a channel dedicated to helping the standard generation master money and achieve financial security. And before I go on, if you have yet to download your free copy of the Standard Generation's Guide to Financial Security, 10 Steps to Securing Your Family's Financial Future, please go to my website at financialtortoise.com and do so. I send out weekly newsletters with other great tips on mastering your money, and I wouldn't want you to miss them. Financial freedom, like life, isn't a destination. It is a journey. And like a good journey, each stage has its own set of adventures and lessons we can learn from. So in this video, I want to walk you through what I believe are the 7 stages of financial freedom. Each stage has its own unique value and its different level of freedom it can provide. I'll be curious to know at what stage you are currently in and what you're learning from it. Please let me know in the comments below or shoot me an email because I'd love to hear more about it. And if you can do me a huge favor and hit the like button as well, I would much appreciate it. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm and allows videos like this to be shared with more people. Stage 1 of financial freedom is to have $1,000 in your bank account as an emergency fund. If this sounds familiar to you, I borrowed it from Dave Ramsey and his baby steps. Dave Ramsey was the first personal finance expert that had a real impact on my wife and I. When we first got married and we were trying to figure out how to pay down our $105,000 student debt, following his baby steps really helped us feel like we were making progress in our personal finances. For many of you, you likely have already reached this stage. So congratulations. Having $1,000 in cash may not seem like much, and definitely far from complete financial freedom, but it is an important step to starting your journey. Some studies show that more than half of Americans can't cover a $1,000 emergency expense with their savings. By having $1,000 liquid cash in your checking account, you're doing better than half of people out there. So if you've already achieved stage 1, give yourself a pat on the back and let's move on to stage 2. Stage 2 of financial freedom is to pay off all debt except a mortgage. This includes debt like credit card debt, student loans, and car loans. The pursuit of financial freedom requires that you aren't being weighed down by debt. If you have accepted debt as a normal way of life, you have to start thinking differently. Debt shouldn't be normal, especially for those of us pursuing financial freedom. When we normalize debt, we normalize lifestyle inflation. We normalize debt payment as a regular part of life. And worst of all, we normalize the background hum of financial stress. If you have debt right now, vow to recognize it as something that needs to be rid of, not to be accepted as a normal way of life. My wife and I use what Dave Ramsey calls the debt snowball method to pay down our student loans. You essentially list out all your debts in order of balance from smallest to the largest, regardless of the interest rate. Then you squeeze out as much as possible from your budget and tackle the smallest one until it's gone. Once it's gone, you focus your effort on the next one, second smallest debt until that one is gone as well. You keep going until all your debt is gone. By tackling from smallest to largest, you gain momentum in your debt pay down journey, like a snowball. Stage 3 is to have between 3 to 6 months of expenses saved in your checking account as an emergency fund. The specific months depends on your personal preference and the stability of your job. My wife and I prefer the 6 months, given we're more risk averse when it comes to preparing for unexpected events. But the key is to have enough cash in your checking account to handle emergencies and life events. Life events like job transitions, or emergencies like your water boiler breaking down. Because you have cash, you don't need to borrow money. You have already paid off all your debt in stage 3. So you don't want to get yourself into a position where you might need to be burdened by debt again. Stage 3 really starts to give you both mental and emotional breathing room when it comes to your finances. You can start planning for the long-term future. You can strategize your career pathway. You're no longer making short-term financial decisions to survive. Stage 4 is to have 1 year of annual expenses saved. And because this is a large sum of money, it will be a combination of your cash and investments. And this is what I believe is a real pivotal point where many of us go from short-term survival mode to long-term wealth building mode. When you have 1 year of expenses saved, you essentially have what Jill Collins famously calls the FU money. If you really don't like your job, you have the ability to quit and look for a new one without the fear of financial catastrophe. If your company is downsizing and you're unfortunately on that list, you don't have to stress out like many others. You kind of welcome the downtime. We live in a time where an average person will have multiple careers in his or her lifetime. For me personally, I've made 3 major career shifts in the last 20 years, completely changing my occupation and the industry I worked in. The world is changing quicker than many of us can adapt to, and having 1 year of expenses will give us the cushion to successfully make these transitions. Another interesting thing you'll notice starting happening at this point is the power of compounding your portfolio. When you have $1,000 in investments and the market is returning 10% a year, $100 doesn't feel like a lot. But when you have $100,000 in the market, now that 10% annual return just made you $10,000 without you needing to do anything. If the 10% return continues, your $100,000 will essentially double to $200,000 in little over 7 years. This is how the wealthy gets wealthier. And at stage 4, you're getting a glimpse of it. Stage 5 is where you have 5 years worth of annual expenses saved and invested. If you arrive at this stage in an earlier point in your life, like in your 20s, in the financial independence world, this stage is what people call Coast FI. Essentially, where you have enough invested in the market that even if you don't invest any more money going forward, the compounding will allow you to have enough to retire when you reach the age of 65. If you're at this stage right now, really, congratulations. You have really achieved more than the majority of Americans will ever achieve in a lifetime. And the compounding effect on your portfolio is really kicking in now. For example, let's say your annual family expense is $100,000 and you have saved and invested $500,000 in the market. At a simple 10% market return, your portfolio is growing at $50,000 a year. That's half of your annual expense. Of course, you aren't spending this amount and it's being reinvested into your portfolio, which allows you to grow that portfolio, let's say at the same trajectory of 10% a year. Which means that without you doing anything, your investment will have grown to $1 million in little over 7 years. I'm simplifying everything here, of course. There are a lot of factors that go into market returns. But the point here is that when you get to stage 5, you will really start to feel the power of financial freedom. At this stage, you can take calculated risks in your life. My wife and I definitely felt this when we reached this stage. It allowed us to start dreaming about where we wanted to be in 10 years, and if we wanted to pursue that new career or new experience. You reach stage 6 when you have 10 years worth of annual expenses saved and invested. At this stage, your portfolio returns could equal your total annual expense. Using the same estimate as earlier, assuming a $100,000 annual expense, you now have $1 million in your portfolio. At 10% annual returns, your portfolio is generating $100,000 from the market returns alone. This is quite amazing if you think about it. Imagine how many hours you have to work a year to make that $100,000 a year. Your sweat, blood, and tears go into making sure your family is financially taken care of. $100,000 pays for the house mortgage, food on the table, insurance, your son's orthodontist expense. When you have 10 years worth of annual expenses in the market, it essentially is generating that same amount, but without the sweat, blood, and tears. Talk about passive income, right? It's quite an amazing feeling if you're able to reach this stage. You might even start to feel rich. And this stage is also where you want to also check yourself because it represents a danger point for many. When you have this much money invested in the market and you feel the emotional freedom that comes with it, it's also possible to fall into complacency when it comes to your budget. You stop looking at the right side of the menu when you order food. Instead of continually shopping at Old Navy, you jump to Banana Republic. I mean, nothing wrong with Banana Republic, but what happened to Gap? You can't just skip it on your way to lifestyle inflation. You should definitely congratulate yourself when you get to this stage, but also don't lose focus. Stage 7 is 25 times your annual expense saved and invested. This is the ultimate financial freedom because when you have 25 times your annual expense invested in the market, you have the choice to completely retire from work. The rationale behind 25 times your annual expense comes from what's called the 4% rule. The base of the 4% rule is that when we pull 4% from our portfolio a year, the investment will continue to grow ahead of inflation, allowing us essentially to live off our portfolio forever, like a goose that continuously lays the golden egg. In the example of a $100,000 annual expense, this means when you have a portfolio of $2.5 million, 25 times $100,000, you are basically financially free. You can pull $100,000 a year from your $2.5 million portfolio for the foreseeable future, and it will never run out. Of course, there are a lot of nuances here that I'm not covering, like inflation and prolonged market downturn, but that's for another time. The basic notion here is that when you achieve stage 7, you can retire from work if you choose to do so. Or you can pursue a different career that you didn't before because of financial reasons. Or you can choose to travel the world with your family. The choice is yours, and the world is your oyster. If you feel like you're too late to the game and you don't think you'll ever reach this stage, don't lose heart. There are many who are pursuing financial freedom even much later in life. My friend has a website called Late Starter Fire, where she chronicles her own personal journey of pursuing financial freedom in her late 40s. I'll have a link to her website below, so to make sure to check it out if you feel like you're late to the financial freedom game. It's never too late to start. The choice is yours. And if you'd like to learn more about my favorite Vanguard funds to help you achieve financial freedom, check out my video on 5 best Vanguard funds to buy and hold forever here. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.